It began as a night Mexico had waited 40 years to feel again. A roar so loud it shook the concrete bones of the Estadio Azteca. A celebration so massive it spilled from the stadium into every street, every plaza, every corner of a nation that had forgotten what this kind of joy tasted like. But by sunrise, that joy would be stained. By sunrise, 4 families would be shattered. By sunrise, the World Cup would have claimed its first lives. And what you are about to hear is the story nobody wanted to tell on the night Mexico was supposed to celebrate. Because behind the fireworks, behind the chants, behind the flags waving in the humid Mexico City air, something went horribly wrong. More than 1 million people flooded into the heart of the capital. 4 of them never made it home. And the questions being asked right now, in the shadow of one of the greatest football nights in Mexican history, are questions that authorities do not want to answer. Stay with us. By the end of this video, you will understand exactly how a night of triumph became a night of tragedy, why the warnings were ignored, and why what happened in Mexico City could happen again before the tournament is over. If you want the full story the mainstream outlets are already softening, subscribe now and turn on notifications, because what is coming is unlike anything you have heard about this World Cup so far. Let us go back to the beginning, to the moment before everything changed. Mexico had not won a World Cup knockout match in 40 years. 40 years. Think about that for a moment. An entire generation of Mexican fans had grown up hearing stories from their parents about 1986, about the last time El Tri broke through, about the last time the country believed. Every 4 years the hope returned. Every 4 years the hope was crushed. Until this night. Until Ecuador walked into the Azteca and Mexico finally ended the curse. The score was 2-0. Clean. Decisive. Historic. The Azteca erupted like a volcano that had been dormant for decades. Grown men wept in the stands. Children who had never seen Mexico win a knockout match watched their fathers scream until their voices gave out. The streets outside filled within minutes. Cars stopped in the middle of intersections. Drivers climbed onto their roofs waving green, white, and red. Church bells rang in neighborhoods that had not heard them ring for football in decades. It was, by every measure, a national moment. A moment of unity, a moment of release. And then the crowds began to move toward the Zócalo. The Zócalo, the beating heart of Mexico City. The plaza where revolutions have been declared, where presidents have addressed the nation, where the country gathers when something bigger than football is happening. That is where they went. Not thousands, not tens of thousands, more than 1 million people pouring into a single square, drunk on victory, on tequila, on 40 years of pent-up hope finally released in a single night. The authorities had planned for this, or so they said. Barricades had been installed, police units had been deployed, emergency exits had been mapped, medical tents had been set up along the perimeter. On paper, it looked prepared. On paper, it looked safe. But paper does not account for what happens when 1 million bodies press against each other in a space designed for a fraction of that number. Paper does not account for the moment when celebration turns into panic. And that moment came fast. Witnesses describe it in fragments, because nobody who was there remembers it as a single event. They remember pieces. A sudden surge from the back of the crowd, a loud crack, some say fireworks, some say pyrotechnics smuggled in by fans, some say something else entirely. A scream, then another. Then the crowd began to move in a direction it was not supposed to move. And once a crowd that large begins to move, nothing on earth can stop it. People fell, and when they fell, others fell on top of them. Ribs cracked, lungs collapsed. Parents lost grip of their children's hands and watched them disappear into a sea of bodies. A woman in her 30s was pulled from the crush already unconscious. A young man, no older than 22, was found beneath a pile of fallen fans, his phone still clutched in his hand, still showing the final score. 2-0. Mexico 2, Ecuador nothing. He never got to celebrate. 4 dead. That is the official number as of this recording. 4 dead. And dozens more injured, some critically. But if you speak to the paramedics who worked through the night, they will tell you the number could still rise. They will tell you what they saw in the field hospitals set up around the Zócalo. They will tell you about the suffocation cases, the crushed chests, the fans who arrived breathing and left in silence. And they will tell you something else, something the government has not said out loud. They will tell you they saw this coming. Because here's the contradiction at the center of this story. The very authorities who promised the celebrations would be safe are the same authorities who allowed a plaza with a safe capacity of roughly 100,000 to hold more than 1 million. The same authorities who spoke of coordination and preparation are the same authorities whose officers were seen on video stepping back, overwhelmed, unable to control the surge. The same authorities who told the nation to celebrate freely are now the ones asking the nation to mourn quietly. Pull back further, and the picture grows darker, because this was not the first warning. In the weeks leading up to the tournament, safety experts had raised alarms about the size of the gatherings expected in Mexico City. Reports had circulated about the sale of unauthorized pyrotechnics in markets across the capital. Videos had surfaced of previous celebrations where crowd surges nearly turned deadly. And still, the plans went ahead. Still, the barricades stayed thin. Still, the exits stayed narrow. Still, the warnings stayed buried. And now, 4 families are bearing something far more precious. Before we go deeper, if this is the kind of coverage you have been looking for, the kind that does not stop at the headline, the kind that asks the questions nobody in power wants asked, subscribe and turn on notifications. Because what is coming next changes how you will see this entire tournament. Because Mexico plays England next. And the celebrations, if Mexico wins again, will be larger. Not smaller, larger. The government has already announced additional security measures. More officers, more barricades, more medical units. But the same government made those same promises before the Ecuador match, and 4 people are dead. So the question is not whether new promises will be made. The question is whether anyone in Mexico still believes them. Talk to the vendors in the Zócalo who cleaned blood off the cobblestones the next morning. Talk to the mothers who spent the night calling hospitals looking for sons who never answered. Talk to the paramedics who are already dreading the next match. They will tell you the truth. They will tell you that a country cannot celebrate the way Mexico wants to celebrate without accepting that more lives may be lost. And they will ask you the question that is haunting Mexico City tonight. How much joy is a life worth? How much football is a child worth? How many trophies justify a funeral? Because that is what this story is really about. It is not about a scoreline. It is not about a knockout drought finally ending after 40 years. It is about the moment a nation forgot that behind every celebration are human beings. Fragile, breakable, irreplaceable. It is about the moment governments confuse crowd size with success and forget that the measure of a great night is not how many showed up, but how many made it home. 4 did not make it home. 4 did not make it home. 4 did not make it home. And as Mexico prepares for England, as the flags come back out, as the chants begin again in the bars and the plazas and the streets, that number sits there, silent, heavy, unforgettable. A reminder that the World Cup, for all its magic, for all its unity, for all its history, is still just a game. And no game, no matter how long the drought, no matter how sweet the victory, is worth a single life. So here's what I want to leave you with. The Estadio Azteca will host more matches. The Zócalo will fill again. The chants will rise, the fireworks will crack, the country will pour into the streets. And somewhere in that ocean of green and white and red, 4 seats at 4 dinner tables will stay empty. 4 voices will not join the singing. 4 stories ended on the night Mexico finally started winning again. What do you think? Should the celebrations continue at the same scale, or has Mexico crossed a line it cannot uncross? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read every one of them, and I want to hear where you stand. If this story moved you, if it made you see this tournament differently, hit like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to hear the side of the World Cup nobody is putting on the front page. Because trophies are lifted, records are broken, droughts finally end, but lives, once lost, do not come back. And no matter who wins this tournament, no matter which nation raises the cup, the first names written into the history of this World Cup will not be champions. They will be the 4 who never made it home.